This is the story of Alita. She's the mom of Minnou, a cat. And this cat she's owned for 10 years. And I have to say here, the only name that I haven't changed in these stories is Minnou's, and I don't think she'll mind. That's just so her mom can identify her from this story, because no telling what happens to it once I get a hold of it. Actually, I do pretty well. I keep pretty close to the facts, ma'am, just the facts. More of the early Dragnet program. Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Well, for these 10 years since Minnou has come into Alita's home, the spiritual exercises of ECK have become very important also for Minnou. This huge session with the Mahanta, the inner master. Well, Alita had just taken up knitting. And so she became so engrossed in knitting that yesterday, in fact, she went clean through the hue session. Okay, Minnou can forgive one day. But you know, this hue session is for Minnou too. You have to understand that animals have a state of consciousness sometimes that is much greater than the humans you find around yourself. They have an understanding of human nature, something that is far and away above that of many people, except they don't know how to speak, their vocal cords don't lend themselves to it, and they don't write because neither do their paws lend themselves to bending around pencils very well. Of course, they could learn to type on computer, I suppose, you know, input messages, I suppose. So Alita's working here, she's knitting away, totally lost, trying to keep track of, you know, the stitches and all. All of a sudden, Minnou made a meowing sound such as she'd never heard before. So she looked at her cat and she tried to figure out, you know, Minnou, what are you saying? Couldn't break through. And so whenever she and Minnou run into this stalemate, they have this little exercise they try between them, and it's show me, you know. So Alita says, show me. And Minnou walks into the bedroom, stops by the chair, which is Alita's special spiritual exercise chair, and then looks up in Alita's face very expectantly, waiting for something. Alita's thinking, well, it must be an hour yet before the hue session with the Mahanta. I just can't figure out what's Minnou is doing. Must have got her time schedule off. But then Alita looks at a clock and she says, oh, it's nearly at the end of our session. And then she realized that Minnou had waited through the whole session, had let yesterday slip by, but today, no, Mom. And then Alita realized that Minnou's meows were just simply saying, hey, it's time. This is the time we meet the Mahanta. And the interesting thing is that at this time, Alita had been focusing on the contemplation, which was dealing with the expression, God is love. And she realized then that Minnou had proved the point. Well, that too showed a change in consciousness, or change is change, because Alita had to be more aware, had to reach a higher state of consciousness if she was going to keep knitting and at the same time continue the hue sessions. And at the same time, again, Minnou was showing that she understood things about the spiritual life, perhaps and undoubtedly in a way that Alita had never realized before. Change in consciousness, expansion in consciousness.